Anything could happen around San Francisco in 1851, and usually did. It was an age of the bizarre and unexpected that left its mark on those who followed. More than 20 years later, a famous thief would win a reputation as Black Bart, the bandit, who exchanged a verse for his victim's gold. But we who lived in San Francisco in the 50s knew the real poet bandit, from whom Black Bart stole not only method, but verse as well.
Throw down the box. I've labored long and hard for bread, for sugar-coated buns, but on my corns too long you've tread, you no good sons of guns. No!
California, California, there's
The Californians.
California, I've come to live where life is best. In the Golden West, I'm gonna strike it rich in California. California.
Where's Jack McGivern? They got the box again.
Listen, Sam,
Where did it happen? When?
early this morning, about dawn, on the East Pass.
Well, how many?
Well, there was just one of them. He gave me this, some kind of a poem.
Sam, what happened? You're not hurt, are you?
No, sir, but they got the box.
Oh, fine. That was vigilante money from our committee in Sacramento.
Maybe you better notify the police.
The police won't help us. The robbery happened outside the city jurisdiction.
Yes, I know. Now, we've got to ride out ourselves. Look, Sam, we'll need you along as guide. Now, go to the livery stable and get a mount and charge it to me, huh? All right, come on, Dion. Did you get a good look at him, Sam?
Yes, sir. He had a flour sack over his head.
Was he a big man?
Maybe.
Small, then, huh?
Maybe.
Now, look, Sam, he was either big or small. Which was he?
Well, I'll tell you, Jack. While I was looking at him, he was looking at me over a double-barrel shotgun and a Colt. And it made him look mighty big, too.
Jack, Hamish, over here. Well, he waited here all right. He must have waited quite a while. He left a lot of footprints. What size boot would you say made a mark like that?
I don't know, Gene. 5, 6, maybe. I'd say he was a pretty short man, about 5'2", 5'4", maybe.
No, sir. Oh, he was bigger than that.
No. And we're looking for a tall man with small feet.
And a clean living one at that.
Why do you say that, Dion?
You can see for yourself. He waited here quite a while for the stage, but he didn't smoke and he didn't chew.
Fine. Now we're looking for a clean-living bandit who is also a poet.
He ought to be jailed on either count. That was our introduction to the literary bandit who called himself the poet. He robbed only when a stagecoach had no guard and laughed at the traps we set for him. He robbed 10 stages within as many weeks. Each time the procedure was the same. Each time he left a snatch of his wretched verse.
So here I've stood while wind and rain have set the trees a-sobbing and risked my life for that dang stage that wasn't worth the robbing. Signed, P.O.8. Po-8, huh?
Ugh, terrible.
Hey.
Your tea too strong, Mr. Patrick?
No, Carrie. No, it's the poet's verse. It upsets my friend dreadfully.
Oh? I thought some of it rather good.
Oh, you did you?
To be sure, it has meter, a certain rhythm and swing to it.
Well, I think the man who wrote it ought to swing.
It reminds me of some of the things written by Master Francois.
Francois who?
Francois Villon, a great poet, gentleman, and a great rogue. Yes, indeed. Do you know the little quatrain he composed the night before he was supposed to be hanged?
No, I don't think I do. Tell us, won't you?
For my sins, I am Francois, born at Paris, near to Pontois. Soon my neck in rope by 3 shall test what weight my carcass be. What spirit, what wonderful, dauntless spirit.
Well, that deserves a cigar, Collie.
Oh, no, Mr. Patrick, thank you. I consider my body a temple, not to be profaned by tobacco or spirits. No offense intended, Mr. Patrick.
None taken. You ready?
What's your hurry? All right. See you later, Cully.
Ta-ta.
Did you notice that?
Notice what?
Collie doesn't smoke.
Well, so he doesn't smoke.
Look, he buys his shoes from you. What size does he wear?
I don't know, 6 or 7 or what? Oh, now, wait a minute. You don't seriously believe that Cully is the poet, do you?
Why not? Tall man, small feet.
Oh, really?
The clues are all right there in the verse for anybody with wit enough to see them. I've labored long and hard for bread.
That's just a phrase, Dion, a manner of speaking.
But was there ever a line that applied more to a baker?
You can't try a man on that kind of evidence, Dion.
All right, try this one. I robbed the rich to feed the poor, which hardly is a sin. A widow ne'er knocked at my door, but what I let her in. Signed, P.O. 8.
I think that's a beautiful sentiment, Dion.
What about the poet's mask? Made out of a flour sack, isn't it?
What about it? Flour sacks are easily come by.
Did you know that Collie Andrews has a string of pensioners as long as your arm? Widows, sick people?
Can't condemn a man for his charity, Dion.
Well, it's a pretty lavish charity for a man who depends on a hole-in-the-wall bakery for his living.
Why would a little man like Cully want to do such things?
I don't know. Maybe the little man wants to feel big. I talked to Collie Andrews' pensioners. He had given them money, food, paid their rent, bought medicine for them. They couldn't tell me much more than that Collie Andrews was a fine man. I found myself agreeing with him. He's always been a charitable man. But up until 10 weeks ago, his charities were confined to occasional food baskets or bakery goods.
When did the poet start robbing the stages?
Just about 10 weeks ago. Since then, I'd say that Collie's good works have cost him almost $5,000.
That's a lot of money for a small baker to be giving away.
Well, why don't we bring him in?
We can't. There's no real evidence that he's the poet.
We work within the framework of the law. We demand evidence before we take a man in.
We could sweat him, make him confess.
You're new to the Vigilance Committee, Hamish, or you'd know that we don't try to force confessions.
Even if we did, I wouldn't have the heart to sweat Collie. It'd be different if we could catch him in the act.
And just how would you go about that?
Offer him some bait that he can't resist. Money, lots of money. With no guard and no posse.
How much money?
$4,000.
Oh?
And me, I'm riding a shotgun. He's gonna sneak it out of town. First thing tomorrow, he's gonna sneak it out of town.
Where is he shipping it?
A committee in Sacramento.
Drink it, Mr. Gorey. It'll do you good.
Collie Andrews rode out early this morning, and Dion followed him. Now let Collie make his play first, then leave the rest to Dion, huh?
Oh, but I'd still like to see some of the other boys out there.
We've tried that, Sam, and it doesn't work. Too many men scare the poet off.
Oh. Jack, just let me get him under the sights of this.
None of that now. We want him alive. Now, good luck to both of you. And don't take any foolish chances. I feel bad enough as it is sending 2 of my friends out as decoys.
I ain't worried a bit about myself, Jack. No, sir.
Now, look here. If you get any foolish notions, don't forget that you've got a family.
But I had to forget some of those things when I joined the Vigilantes, didn't I? Don't you worry about me, Jack. I'll be all right.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Dion! Where were you?
What happened?
He hit us when We came around the bend. We did just like McGivern told us. Threw the box down and waited for you to take him. Where were you, Dean? Where were you?
Never mind that. Why'd he shoot the driver?
I made a play when you didn't show. I got one shot off. I missed. He didn't.
Was it the poet?
It was Collie Andrews.
What's that? You ne'er again will rob a stage. What? Did you so? Faith, I didn't know it. Was that what threw poor Themis in a rage? I thought you were convicted as a poet. Huh. Dean found this in the empty express box.
A callous, cruel thing to write, just after killing a man.
Yes. But it was yourself that was calling him poor, unfortunate man not so long ago.
We searched the bakery. Collie's gone. You know, this thing bothers me. The printing's different, and it doesn't sound like the poet. The lines, they don't seem to have the same rhythm.
Now, look here. This is no time for literary discussion. He stole vigilante funds and killed a member of the committee. Collie is a murderer, Dean. And I mean to see him hang.
Turn around, Mr. Patrick. Slowly. Sit down, Mr. Patrick.
Come back to kill me, too?
No? I've come to ask your help.
Help? You murdered a man and you come to me for help?
Mr. Patrick, I give you my word that I didn't kill anybody. Not anybody, Mr. Patrick. I just couldn't do a thing like that.
Are you trying to say you're not the poet?
Oh, no, sir. I'm the poet. I freely admit it. I'm a thief, and I'm willing to pay for it, but I'm not a murderer. You must believe me, sir. You must.
You come in here with a gun ready to blast me, and you tell me you're not a killer?
Will this prove anything?
I'll have to take you in.
I only ask you to do what you can to prove me innocent of murder.
How'd you get into this mess?
I never thought it would lead to this. I never had the feeling that I was committing a crime. To me, it was more like a game. A gay, romantic game. Like something out of the books.
Books?
The books I read. The wonderful books that could make a man like me forget his own porkiness. I was always meager, sir. A thin and meager youth. A small and meager man. But when I read the books, I was tall and handsome, debonair, Dick Turpin and daring, Master Rabelais in my gusty, ribald enjoyment of life, my good friend Francois Villon in verve and wit. I wanted to be so many things that I'm not.
So you took to holding up stages, huh?
But I never harmed anyone. You'll go with me to the police.
Oh, to the vigilantes, Collie. It was vigilante money you stole.
They've been out a long time.
Well, that's a good sign. It means that even Hamish Glory's identification didn't convince them of your guilt.
Prisoner will rise. Colin Andrews, you have been tried before the Vigilance Committee of San Francisco and found guilty of the crimes of robbery and murder.
No,
It is the sentence of this committee that you be put to death by hanging until all life has left your body. And may God have mercy on your soul. The sentence will be carried out at daybreak. You have until then to make peace with your Maker for all of your crimes.
Jack, you can't hang him.
He's guilty.
Of those other robberies, yes. Collie admits that. But he didn't admit this one, and you didn't prove he did it.
He received a fair trial.
You were gonna hang him from the minute he walked into that room.
There's no doubt of his guilt. He was convicted on evidence, Dion. He was identified by verses which he admits writing, by a flour sack which he used to disguise himself, and finally, by Hamish Glory's positive identification of him.
How could Hamish be so sure when the man had a flour sack over his head? Jack, you always stood for fairness and patience. Why have you changed now?
Why have I changed? I'll tell you why. I was the one that set the trap for the poet. I was the one that sent a friend to his death.
Are you trying to wash out your regret in another man's blood?
Heavens, I won't stand for that, Dion!
And I won't stop thinking it. Not unless you give me a chance to prove he's innocent.
How?
I want to ride out and inspect the scene of the crime. The spot where we found the express box. I want to measure any footprints the man may have left while he was in hiding.
There's no time for that, Marty.
You can give me the time.
All right. You have 2 hours.
2 hours? That's not enough.
2 hours, I said.
Two hours to save a man's neck. It was a 45-minute ride to the scene of the crime. If you half killed a horse to make it. Every track's all right. Lots of tracks. Mine, McGivern's, all the men who had flocked to the scene of the crime. Plenty of tracks leading into the clearing, none leading out toward the deep brush where a bandit would most likely tether his horse.
All right, Joe.
Mr. Ware! Mr. Ware, wake up in there!
Who is that?
Dion Patrick, I've got to see you. Are these records accurate?
Mr. Patrick, I pride myself on keeping excellent records, right down to the last dotted I.
All right, bring him along.
Stop! You're hanging the wrong man. I told you there were things about this murder that bothered me. The verse we found. It wasn't the kind of verse that Collie Andrews would write. And the printing bothered me. It wasn't the same as on the other notes.
We went through all this at his trial, Dion.
Did we, Hamish?
Look, we're only doing what we have to do. Now get her!
Wait, there's some other things. In every robbery the poet committed, there were signs that he waited a long time for the coach he was about to hold up. There were no such signs at the time of the murder. Well, there was one thing left behind when the thief opened the strongbox. Something so small he didn't even notice he'd lost it. This. But this scrap of pocket handkerchief spoiled his plan.
Will you get to the point, Dion?
I found this where the thief dropped it. And on it was another little thing. A laundry mark. F147. From the same agency that sends my laundry to Honolulu by Clipper. Ware's Tobacco Shop. Then I found that number. Here in Wade's records. And the name of the man who lost the handkerchief. When he scrambled to hide his loot and get back to the road. To pretend he'd been injured when the stage team bolted. Hamish Glory, I accuse you of murder. Were you giving thanks for your deliverance?
No, indeed. I was composing a poem.
I don't need to tell you, gentlemen, that we made a mistake. Almost a terrible mistake. And it was my fault. It was my anger, my sorrow at the loss of a friend, and my conviction that I was right that led an innocent man almost to the gallows. There's an inherent danger in an organization such as ours, that men do what they think is right instead of what the law says is right. This is something that we've got to guard against in the future. As you know, the guilty man has been handed over to the courts. And needless to say, there is no doubt of his punishment. I want to thank you all, gentlemen. Good night. Where's Collie?
He's in the city jail. He's gonna plead guilty to highway robbery.
And I hope they won't be too hard on the poor man.
I don't think they will. Say, he sent you something. Calls it his, tribute.
I robbed the rich to feed the poor, which hardly is a sin. A widow ne'er knocked at my door, but what I let her in. So blame me not for what I've done. I don't deserve your curses, and if for any cause I'm hung, let it be for my verses.
California. Oh, I've traveled here, I've traveled there. I guess I've been most everywhere. But I like where I am today, and here is where I'll stay. Now, one thing I just can't endure is being broke and being poor. So I come west to take the cure, and here is where I'll stay. I've come to California, California. There's gold in them there hills in California. I've come to live where life is best. In the golden west, I'm gonna strike it rich in California.